So, I was mostly a historical romance reader prior to picking up my very first new adult romance. Hi guys, my name is Ezra and welcome back to my channel. So, as I've said, I have originally been a historical romance reader, purely a historical romance reader, and I would probably read like random romance genres here and there, but historical romance was my favorite genre. I was constantly just reading and rereading my favorite historical romances until I picked up one contemporary new adult romance that blew my heart, and the rest is history. So, for this video, I am going to be sharing my favorite new adult romances that I have read so far. So, I'm hoping that this is going to be a series of favorite in the specific genre before I dive in and share my favorite books for a specific trope. So, without further ado, let's get started. So the very first contemporary romance, new adult romance specifically, that I read and was blown away by is Wait For You by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was when she was writing under her other pen name, J. Lynn, and this book really blew my heart away. I just want to let you know that there are trigger warnings for this book. There is sexual assault off page, but it is described by the heroine when she recounts her experience. But this book really broke me. So the heroine in this book is Avery. She is now in college and she plans to forget what happened to her in high school because she was assaulted in high school and everybody else did not believe her. Now, the hero is a jock, popular kid. His name is Cam. So the heroine is Avery, the hero is Cam, and he is the best cinnamon roll hero ever. I really love the slow burn romance between Cam and Avery, and oh my god, I reread this book multiple times and it just tears me up every time. I love how the focus of this book is really Avery and her dealing with the incident that happened to her in high school. Plus, there is also a person constantly contacting her, kind of forcing her to tell her story. So this is such an amazing book. Cam is such an amazing hero. You can really tell how patient he is with Avery, and even though they don't get intimate until later on in the book, this is an extremely slow burn romance, but everything that happens between these two people is just amazing. So I really highly recommend this book. So the next books are actually, it is a series, and I read this book actually prior to reading Wait For You by Jennifer L. Armentrout. However, it did not hook me to new adult or contemporary romance in general. However, I absolutely love this series. So the series that I'm talking about is the Ivy Chronicles series by Sophie Jordan. So this is her new adult series that was published, I think, in the, I would say early 2010s. So yes, 2013. So the first book was published in 2013. And I absolutely loved it. I actually reread this series multiple times already. So the first book in the series is Foreplay. And yes, it does look steamy. This is actually the least steamy book in the series because this is just an introduction of new adult. And at this time, maybe in the early 2010s, new adult wasn't that steamy yet, but I really love this. So the heroine here, her name is Pepper, and the hero, his name is Freeze. So Pepper is in love with her best friend's brother, older brother, and that is the reason why she actually applied to this school. I forgot the name of the school, but she applied to this school and she got in. So she is a sophomore, I believe, and she finds out that her best friend's brother broke up with his longtime girlfriend. So she wants to date him and she wants to tell him how she feels. However, she's never had a boyfriend, and something also happened to her too. So there is also another trigger warning in this series and this book specifically too. So she doesn't know how to make him fall in love with her. So her best friends, her two best friends, Emerson and Georgia, they also get the books. So her two best friends, Emerson and Georgia, actually recommend that she hook up with this playboy dude that works at one of their favorite pubs that they hang out in. And she goes to this pub. So she mistakes this playboy guy for the older brother, and his name is Reese. And so she makes a play for him, and he doesn't really act like he's a playboy. And when she finds out that he is a guy that she's supposed to ask for seduction lessons, she said yes because she had already met him. So I absolutely love this book. This was a fun fake relationship romance that was emotional as well. And I really love this. Reese is such a sweetie pie, and I have reread this multiple times, so I highly recommend this book too. The next book in the series is Tease, which is Emerson's book, and the hero's name is Shaw. He just came back from the war, and Emerson is actually a very rich. She has this reputation of being loose and having multiple boyfriends, and actually doesn't have a boyfriend, but having multiple guys, and Shaw is just a typical alpha male that really tamed her. I absolutely love this book as well. This one is more emotional and more intense. There is something that happened to Emerson when she was still in high school as well. So there is trigger warnings in this book, again, for sexual assault, and very emotional. I think this is the most intense book in the series. Finally, the last book in the series is Wild, and oh my God, this is an age gap romance. The heroine is Georgia. She just broke up with her long-term boyfriend. And so she was interested in going to this kink club. So there's this kink club that is by invitation only. And she finds out that her roommate has been to this kink club, so she goes with this roommate. And who does she find in that kink club but Logan, the hero? So Logan is actually Reese's younger brother, and he's still in high school, but he is already 18. So Georgia's about a couple years older than Logan, and wow, this book is the steamiest book in the series, and it's also really great. So Georgia is very opposite to Logan. She is the straight A student, and her parents actually already expected that she would marry her longtime boyfriend. They've been dating since they were a freshman in high school, but he broke up with her. So yeah, that's what happened. So she was like, screw this. I want to experience life. I just want to be loved. So that's why she went to the kink club, and that's how she met Logan, and that's how she fell for Logan. So Logan is actually the more experienced guy in this relationship, and Logan was the playboy that the girls were talking about in the first book. So I highly recommend these 3 books in the series. I think on my Instagram I keep on recommending these books because nobody really talks about this, because this was one of the earlier new adult romances that came out. And yeah, nobody talks about it anymore, but I love them so much. I actually got these books when I was an Avon addict, so thank you for them, because that's how I discovered this series. So the next book that I'm talking about is something that is special to me, and it is Recovered by Jay Crownover. This is a standalone, but the Markman series is actually, the Markman series is mentioned at the end of the book because the guy, the hero of this book, becomes a tattoo artist. But this book has a lot of trigger warnings about substance abuse. So the hero of this story is a rich, popular boy, and they live in this small town. I believe his family owns like half of the town, or like most of the town. He is just damaged. He does drugs and there's a lot of things going on with him. And Afton, she is a new student. I believe she's been there for, I would say, a year or a couple years. But she actually talks to Cable and tells him that her mother passed away due to substance abuse and she wanted him to stop, but he doesn't. So something happens and then he ends up in jail and now he's out. So the romance happens a couple years later or something like that, but it should be in between high school and college. And Afton kind of becomes his sober buddy and make sure that he is clean. So they do go to a beach house, his beach house, and that's where they stay. And in the process, they fall in love. This book is just amazing. It took me a while to read this book. I did not read this book immediately because this book really personally hit me very hard. You know, some of the things that happen in this book is a little bit over the top, but I felt like it was very realistic. It really depicted the things, the darkness of addiction. And I also loved that this book really focused more on how a recovering addict is dealing with his addiction every single day. Nobody really talks about this book. I mean, the cover is not that great. I really don't. I mean, for him to be a tattoo artist and only having a web tattoo, it's really not great. But this book is just so good. I highly, highly recommend this book. The next book that I recommend is the very first Christina Lauren book that I read, and it is Sweet Filthy Boy. And wow, this is actually a monster of a book, but this book was really, really, really good. This is a new adult romance, and actually the heroine, her name is Mia. They just graduate from high school. And they go to Vegas. She and her best friends go to Vegas. So this is the first book in the series. So she and her friends go to Vegas, and then they get drunk, and the next thing she knows, she wakes up and ends up married to the hero, Ansel. Ansel is absolutely dreamy. Ansel is French, and he was actually in Vegas for a vacation to meet up with his other friends. Oh my gosh. So what happens in this book is that they end up getting married, and instead of divorcing, Mia actually follows him to France, and they try to make their marriage work. This is such an amazing book. I think it's more like a marriage of convenience / one night stand, where she couldn't even remember what happened to them because she was just both of them were so drunk. But I love how Ansel and Mia were trying to just make their marriage work, and they were doing their best to get to know each other because they never really knew each other. And another thing that I loved about this book is that since Mia goes to France, she actually visits a few sites that were off the beaten path. Something that, not the Eiffel Tower, not the usual sites that we usually hear about when you talk about Paris. But she goes to this walking tour, and I think it was about, I forgot. No, I'm getting confused about another book, but the book just tells us about like off the beaten path places to go to, and I felt like I was there with Mia experiencing Paris for the first time. So this book is pretty steamy, like Beautiful Bastard steamy. So don't worry about that. This is such a good book, and I highly recommend it. The very last new adult romance that I recommend is The Year We Fell Down by Serena Bowen. This is another emotional book. This is about Corey and Adam. So Corey is actually an athlete, and she is a hockey star. Unfortunately, she gets injured in one of her games. So now she's in college trying to get on with her life, And then she is in this dorm where she meets Adam, who has his foot in a cast because of a sports injury. He's also another hockey star. And the romance between these two is amazing. So this book actually starts off as a friends to lovers romance. And actually, Adam has a girlfriend and Corey's just not interested in being in a relationship, especially to somebody who's such a popular athlete, hockey, and she was a hockey player too. So it's very emotional. I love the disability rep in this book. It's just so emotional. And one thing that I really liked about this book is how Corey grows to accept her strengths and accept that she is unable to play anymore. So there's just a lot of positivity in this book, a lot of emotional moments. By the way, Adam's injury is temporary. However, Corey's injury is not. So this is just an amazing thing. I love that at part of this book, Corey actually goes and does something that she is proud of, and she actually goes back into sports, and I think it was something like a water sport thing that she did, and it's just amazing. Her growth in this whole book is just amazing. Anyway, those are all my favorite new adult romances that I highly recommend that you read. Please let me know if you've read any of the books here and tell me which one is your favorite. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in another video.